Now we're going to come back down to earth here with our third speaker tonight, Mary H.K. Choi. Mary is a writer for the New York Times, GQ, Wired, and The Atlantic. She has written comics for Marvel and DC, a collection of essays called Oh, Never Mind, and a New York Times bestselling novels Emergency Contact and Permanent Record. She is the host of Hey, Cool Job, a podcast about, yes, you guessed it, jobs, and Hey, Cool Life, a podcast about mental health and creativity. Her new novel, Yoke, came out earlier this month. She's written, in her own words, "There's this weird thing about writing fiction where even if you wanted to be wholly divorced from your own life and experience, that's what you end up drawing from." Everyone, please welcome Mary Choi.
Okay, so you know who loves a dramatic declaration about from this moment on? Immigrants and bulimics. Stay with me. Okay, so my parents moved from Korea to Hong Kong when I was 1. And then we moved again when I was 14 to America. Not just any America, but Texas, which is America AF, which is to say it's so American, it's Mexican. Because pillaging is super American. In any event, immigrants, especially my flavor, are really into a better day, a brighter day. And the only way to get there is sacrifices. And I know this because it's all my parents talk about. So this is an impression of my parents. Picture me haggard from a lifetime of service industry jobs, like without a ring light, no filters, nothing. Okay. 형경아, that's my Korean name. 이거는 다 너 때문에야. All this is because of you. And interestingly, in Korean, it could also be translated as this is all your fault, which I totally get. When I was born, I was almost 11 pounds, and my mother, meanwhile, is 110 pounds, which is the kind of math that makes you recoil violently. You don't even have to have a cervix to have that sort of like reaction. And sometimes I try to envision my own birth and wonder whether my mom felt like one of those tiny British hats, those fascinators with like a feather and like a bit of mesh, while I'm crowning out of her like a horror movie, because I can't imagine something doing that to me and then having to take that something home to feed it and carry it for another year. Again, 이거는 다 너 때문에야. Relatedly, my mother has a lot of unexpressed rage. And after my birth, she snapped back to a size 2 in like 1 week. So I have a lot of unexpressed resentment. Because for what it's worth, I don't think it makes sense that I came from her either. So I was 11 when I became bulimic. That's the one where you binge and purge. And it's interesting because you basically never really get anywhere. You eat 20,000 calories in one sitting and then you get rid of it, which nets you like nothing. And this is helpful when your whole life is performance anxiety. Like nothing you do counts. There's safety in that. The clock never actually has to start. I remember that day exactly, the moment I decided to become bulimic. I'd made my mom take off work, and she took me to the doctor for a pernicious little UTI. I knew how angry she'd be about like skipping work. So I got angrier like preemptively, which wasn't hard because I was mad. Like I had done everything an 11-year-old could do when you have blinding, searing pain when you pee. I told 0 people and stopped drinking water. It was like super unfair to me that that somehow didn't work. So me and the doctor, who is a man, are talking about my 11-year-old vagina in broad daylight with my mom in the room. A woman who habitually opens a book and starts reading when the movie we're watching together has like a makeout scene. So like we're not into bodies, feelings, intimacy, anything. And so we're just both there mortified. And then this man does the unthinkable. He asks me to step on this scale. I'm in a paper gown trying to think if I'm heavier with my arms like wrapped around me, like covering me, or with my arms down by my sides. And he starts at 50 pounds. So of course it goes like thunk. And then this sadist, like Hippocratic oath, nothing sadist, like moves a little block to the 100-pound mark. And then he slides. And then he slides some more. And I'm keeping my eye on like 110 because that's how much my mom weighs. And he keeps going. And when the little beam stops wobbling, stops like toying with my emotions, we all see that I am 3 pounds heavier than my mother at 11 at about a foot shorter, and I know this is going to be a problem. So I get dressed, we walk to the bus, and she turns to me and she goes, "When a child is overweight, it is the sin of the parents." And she looks shocked, like disappointed, enraged, because obviously anger is like the only emotion that's like readily available for my entire family. But like she also looks really scared. And I don't want to scare her. Like she has enough to worry about. So from then on, everything I ate, all the heavy, comforting things I used to stuff down the fear of being a latchkey kid alone at home with absentee parents who worked nights feeding other people at the Korean restaurant they worked at, all the stuff I ate to like numb out, I would uneat just violently, savagely, because I was working towards something too. For the day I would be shiny enough, glossy enough, smart enough, shrewd enough, elegant enough to have earned the spoils of my parents' labors, because I am my ancestors' wildest dreams. Everything about the collectivist society they grew up in, every social moray that defines who they are and who their forebears are before them, are about how to survive and how to stay safe. And what that looks like is you keep your head down, you do the work, you don't complain, you work harder than the person next to you, you don't get noticed, except maybe be noticed enough to someday get rewarded. Like, I don't know how that works. But my parents work like they're being chased by a pack of wild dogs. Now they own restaurants, and their favorite pastime on the rare occasions that they are home is to watch the closed circuit like restaurant footage of their restaurants on their Costco flat screen TV. And they're just like hawk-eyed. And when the crowd gets big or like the area by the sushi bar gets a little dicey, they're like firefighters. They're like spring into action. They drop everything, grab their go bag, climb into their little Uniqlo vests, and they hit the road and they save the day. And they believe that they're running towards something, they're working towards something, that in eating bitterness and all the suffering and swallowing difficulty and swallowing pain and swallowing all of this, they will be promised a brighter future. In bitterness, they will earn sweetness. It's the sort of like triumph of the human spirit that you have to believe. Sometimes, like my mother grew up in famine. There were mornings when she would wake up hungry, and she and her six siblings would not know when they would eat again. And like, why wouldn't you drink that Kool-Aid of how some moment will be that moment? But like, to me, like, here's the rub, because when is this moment? How long exactly do you have to put off joy? Like, but also, why cash in joy when you can amortize that joy? Get bigger joy, compound interest joy. You know what joy you can really enjoy? Like more joy. You know, when you're eating your roommate's ice cream, and maybe you've been eating your roommate's ice cream for a while and they maybe don't really love it because they don't understand why you wouldn't just buy your own ice cream. And you're like, oh my God, why would I buy my own ice cream? I don't even eat ice cream. I'm like lactose intolerant. I don't eat refined sugars. And in any event, you're eating your roommate's ice cream and they're doing that thing where you can see that they've eaten half like down the middle. So you're like gonna dig under the top layer and like burrow and like exhume all the chunks and like the nugs and like hit that like caramel ore and like get all the veins of sauce, but like not disturbing the sanctity of like the top layer, thereby it not really counting as like eating your roommate's ice cream. Do you do that? I wish I was in a room. I don't do that though, because whenever I do that, I'm totally blacked out. It's not my fault. None of it charts. At the worst of my eating disorder, I was 36 years old in a hotel suite in Beijing. I had a job being on TV. In so many ways, it was my dream. It was like my parents' dream, everyone they bragged to at church's dream, all the dreams, everyone's dreams. But I was stuck eating and uneating things like cookies, entire fruit baskets, and like a truly weird number of Pringles, and quite possibly the nicest bathroom I'd ever been in because I couldn't sleep. At the time, I was convinced that the only thing I could do to while away the hours that would allow me to have some say in the passage of time was doing this. It felt like kind of like fast forwarding. Like maybe if I just wasn't in this moment, like maybe I'd be better. Having an eating disorder is all about that moment. It's all from this moment on. You know, it's a series of recursive promises that you make to yourself and then break. Because God forbid I show up to the moment. The better me, the thinner me, the more disciplined me, that's like who deserves the moment. Because from this moment is such a seductive concept, but it makes a ghost of you. It makes a dress rehearsal of your life for a production that may never begin. It's like this moment, not this moment. This moment sucks, but like this moment, or maybe not this moment because I haven't quite earned this moment, but maybe I will, but like not quite yet. I hate my hair in this moment. Do I need bangs for the moment? And it was sometime during all these moments in pandemic when most moments ceased to have any contours or meaning or delineation from any other moments when my mom got cancer. And then a few moments later, my dad was diagnosed with ALS. And I can't help thinking about how much time we've all spent living for a future moment. I was like super bitter when they got sick. I was angry that they'd wasted their lives on someone who wasn't them. Like, how could I possibly deserve everything they'd sacrificed? I was on hold for an hour with a name brand hotel timeshare company that had successfully fleeced my parents out of $30,000 for trips they were never able to take. Like, my parents don't speak English and they didn't know how the Ponzi scheme even worked. And this company who had signed them up had seized their shares and auctioned it back to themselves. And that's when I learned that 8 hardworking people, 6 of whom were Asian women, were murdered in a racist hate crime. And I don't think they were killed because they weren't working hard enough or quietly enough or suffering enough for their children. They'd done all the things that they were taught that would keep them safe. This past weekend in New York, there was a rally against anti-Asian attacks. I went to that rally. And 5 more Asian people were violently targeted, beaten with pipes. An Asian woman coming from the rally was punched in the face twice in the subway. She was with her young Asian daughter. And from this moment is a scam. It presumes that the Faustian bargain struck is with a sense of accord, of parity, that there will be some kind of exchange, some consideration for all of these deliverables, and life just isn't like that. We all just have the moments we have, the ones in front of us, and they have to be good enough. We have to have already earned them by dint of arriving at them and simply being alive. They have to be enjoyed with urgency and resolve and the sweetness of being with the people who we love, no matter how imperfect our bodies are and how they insist on doing unsavory human things like being lumpy or being heavy or being broken or being sick or progressively losing mobility in your hands and feet until you can only watch the restaurant on the TV and you cannot spring into action. Because this is all we've got. This is all we are, this moment, but also this moment, but especially this moment. So that's me.